Okay, let me see.
Okay.
uh, let's start then. So we have for homework the expository essay, okay, for this Wednesday, okay? I gave you the example that we read. I didn't send anything during the weekend because I wanted for us to take it easy this weekend, okay? So this week we can work and complete it,
Okay. Mhm.
okay? And by the end of this week, we should be able to start on the other one, okay? And before anything, if you need any help about your expository essay, let me know. Um, in fact, you don't need much. How can I say it? Information is pretty easy. But if you need an additional explanation, I can provide that to you. But let me know once you start working on it, okay? If not,
Okay.
I can give you the information. But I don't want to confuse you with too much material. And yes, just make sure to have it ready um, by this Wednesday, okay?
Okay. What
And
topic I have to do? I don't understand.
I'm sorry. Oh,
My,
it's your choice.
okay.
Your choice. Okay, your choice of topic. Just make sure you write a maximum of 350 words.
Okay.
Okay, maximum 350 words. Okay, I think that's just the perfect amount of words. Okay,
Okay.
and let's move on. Let me show you my screen. Okay, so what we're going to talk today is about ideas from articles, how to use evidence from a text in order to use that evidence and use it for an essay, for a video, or even to answer some questions, right? Or even for yourself, so you can prove something, okay? So whenever you write about ideas presented in a text, you must provide evidence from that text to prove your point, explaining how and why the evidence you have provided demonstrates your claims, just like a lawyer does in court. Yes, unfortunately, that's the way it is. Now, of course, when you get information, you got to make sure it's real, right?
Yes.
You don't want to provide gossips or something that is just intended to create this discomfort or confusion, right? If not, we will become part of it. Okay.
Okay.
So when writing about a text and ideas, it presents the evidence. It is important to support each of your claims with evidence from the text. This enables you to show how you arrive at your conclusion. Sometimes you must do in order to make your analysis convincing. Yes. And that's why we use quotations. That's why we provide the sources that we have used. That's our evidence. And And of course, if you provide a link to a video, to the text, it'll make it easier. Before we had a broad access to the internet, and I remember this, I'm not sure you had the opportunity to go through this, but you had to go to the library and look for books.
It's
And
more difficult.
yeah, because you didn't have that many sources. And what made it more interesting, if you were competing with other students, um, and they were working on the same topic, so your books were also maybe scarce because someone already had it taken, right? Because they were using it. Um, so it was different, and you had to go through some articles, some old articles, do some research for your research. That's the way it was. Now it's just too easy.
Yes.
That's the beauty about the internet. It's just way too easy, but it never was that way. So evidence can be quotations from the text. For example, Steinbeck describes Slim's godlike eyes, which suggests his power and authority on the ranch. Okay. Now, sometimes quotations can be just one apostrophe, not the double apostrophe, right?
Okay.
It depends, but either way is correct. Now, the reason why they use the single quotes mainly is to show a direct quote from a book, and when they use a double quote is also to show a title from a book, a headline, and sometimes then when they use it in general, it could be also for general information about what a person said. It depends. It depends on what literary terms are you using, and that's when the punctuation varies. A lot of
Okay.
most of the writers, yes, most writers, they use the most complex ones because they, of course, they want to use all the tools they have. But in our case, it's okay. We can use the double quotes for headlines, for direct quotes. It doesn't matter. But if you feel more comfortable to use the single and double quotes, no problem.
Okay.
Examples from the text. The narrator is never named in Daphne du Maurier novel Rebecca. Okay, both types of evidence must be relevant and support each idea you have about the text. They are used to help you prove your point, showing the reader that you have to say what you have to say about the text is based on ideas presented in the text. Okay, so
Okay.
yes, when you provide a direct quote, you must use quotation marks at the start and end of the quotation to show the reader that this evidence has been taken directly from the text. Okay, the example below demonstrates how you might use evidence. The Art of Being Normal by Lisa Williamson. This is a great book. David likens Harry to an angry animal by saying, "He growls in my ear." You see how they use a single quote because it's directly from the book. So the
Okay.
double quote is when you're using a title or the name of a street. It varies. What we practiced was using double quotes as if it was single quote. Like I said, it depends on under what literary terms are you working, but no worries. And also remember that French, British, American literary terms vary. Okay.
Okay.
So place the quotation marks. Look for the evidence taken from the text in the following sentence where you think the quotation marks should go. Where do you think they should go?
Mm,
Bruno's maid, Maria, is clearly worried about something at the start of the novel as she was twisting her hands together nervously. And this is a excerpt from The Boy in Striped Pajamas by John Boyne.
okay.
Okay. So where do you think the quote is? It's tricky.
I think is mm, she was twisting her hands together nervously.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
That's the quote. Of course, we're trying to make the best effort with the information we have, right?
Yes.
But imagine how you would use this information when you write something. And you've done it before in Spanish, perhaps, right?
Yes.
Okay. So select and relevant quotations. In order to select the most appropriate quotation as evidence, you need to ensure it is. Yes, it has to be relevant to the claim you're making about the text. Of course, you don't use just random information. You want to prove a point, it has to be very relevant. Implying the ideas you're saying, the text is presenting rather than stating them directly. Okay? Implying the idea. Okay? Not necessarily giving you a description of the idea. No. The best piece of evidence to prove that the writer is implying these ideas. Now, yes, if you, it's like a saying we have in Mexico. If you are going to, you're competing to get a good grade, and let's say your grade depends on getting the best note, you need to use all the meat you have and put it on your barbecue grill. So
Okay.
use the best evidence that you can find.
Okay.
Okay, that's what it is, pretty much. And remember, there will be people that will be talking about great topics, and those are the people that are competing to have that A grade. When it comes to the teacher, the professor, to make an evaluation, which one is better? Trust me, the best evidence, the best relevant claims, and the implying ideas are the ones that are going to get the note. Okay, in another example, in Trash by Andy Mulligan, sections of the story are narrated by the character Raphael, who is homeless and lives in a rubbish dump. He needs to be smart and resourceful to survive. When you read about this character, you might conclude that he seems sneaky and devious at times. One way to show this is to select a part of the text that you think implies and best supports your ideas. For example, Raphael seems sneaky and devious because he took a map of the city and slipped it down his shorts rather than share his finds with others. So yes, you want to, if you are describing the text and saying that Raphael is sneaky, I'm going to show you next time an example from the text. What is the evidence? What are his actions?
Okay.
He's taking away a piece of document that is going to help you survive, but also he's keeping it to himself. He doesn't want to show it to anyone else. Using the direct quotation, slip that down, shows that you have looked at this part of the text carefully, thought about Raphael's actions have been described and what implies about the character. Yes, that's what they mean by implied, show you the evidence. Because if you tell me, oh, yeah, Raphael is devious and he's a sneaky, whatever, and then you use a quotation from the text that says Raphael is sneaky, or that, it doesn't tell me that much.
Okay.
I need more info. That's what they mean.
Okay.
Okay, and also use the descriptions of Raphael's actions to form a view of the character. Yes, pretty much. Before selecting a quotation to prove a point, think about what makes it relevant. A relevant quotation demonstrates your idea. It should be closely connected to the point you're making. Okay? So, any questions?
No. Where do I have to apply all the rules?
I'm sorry?
Where do I have to use all these rules?
All this information when you write or whenever you write any essay.
But for TOEFL too?
Yes. Well, pretty much yes.
Okay.
When you write your essay, you have to use this information. I mean, when you write your essay in TOEFL, it's gonna be fast. You're not gonna have time to do some research, go to the library or go online. No, you're gonna use the text that they're giving you, right?
Yes.
And with the information from the text, you have to be able to use the information provided and support your ideas. Either you're going to take a side on a suggestion or a claim, you need to be able to show why. That's why we use implying ideas, evidence, and we use quotations.
Okay.
In the end, yes, you're going to use this information in the top, okay?
Okay.
Pick the most relevant quotation. Read the following claim about the lift Thomas wakes up in at the start of The Maze Runner by James Dashner. The lift that Thomas first wakes up in doesn't sound very safe and seems frightening. Now, read the extract and decide which part of the text that you think would be best be used as evidence for this claim. Can you help me with the reading?
Okay. The lightless lift swayed back and forth as it ascended, turning the boy's stomach sore with nausea. A smell like burnt oil invaded his sense, making him feel worse. He wanted to cry, but no tears came. He could only sit there, alone, waiting.
Okay. So remember, you want to show that the lift, the elevator, doesn't sound very safe and is frightening. Which part would you use as evidence?
Mm, the lightless slips way back and forth as it ascended.
Until where? Until here. Until the part where it says making him feel worse.
The lightless until
Yes.
him feel worse. Okay.
Yes, lift sway back and forth as Ed ascended, turning the boy's stomach sour with nausea. It's a smell like burnt oil invaded his senses, making him feel worse. There, that's what you need. Because you are showing evidence that the elevator is moving around. There's smells of oil, and he's a boy, right? So yeah, that sounds very unsafe. And also you're scared. That is the best evidence from this one. Now,
Okay.
have you ever read this book?
No, never.
Okay, well, it's a movie, a couple of movies about the Maze Runner, but the book is actually pretty good.
Okay. No, I never read.
Okay, no problem. Embedding quotations. When providing evidence for a claim you make about the text you are analyzing, it is important to try and embed your quotations to make it a seamless part of your own sentence. Like this example that uses evidence from The Art of Being Normal by Lisa Williamson. Okay, that try to integrate the evidence into your explanation. Yes, like it was part of it. That's what they're trying to say. Instead of saying David clearly uh, thinks Harry is like an angry animal and feels threatened by him, this is shown when it says he growls in my ear. Well, yes, you're saying in the book it says he growls. He's like an animal. Okay, you're using a quote, no problem, but you want to embed it, make it part of it. So this is the other example, embed the quotation. When Harry growls in David's ear, it is clear David feels threatened by him as he is behaving like an aggressive animal, warning David he might attack. Now that's beautiful. You see the difference?
mm, yes.
Okay. We're used to apply these kind of quotations right here. It says, he said, yes. But when you use it as part of your text, embedding the quotation, it makes it sound smooth. You know what you're talking about. You're not copying the information, you're using it. And you're showing that you have used a quotation and you're showing your sources about it.
Okay.
Some hints. Number one, to successfully embed quotations into your sentence, only quote the important keywords or phrases. Yes, you don't use a whole paragraph. Okay,
Okay.
unless remember that you have to, but that will be in a different type of essay. Remember that we learn how to use a column.
Yes.
Okay, you use a column and then you have your quote as a paragraph. No problem. But that's not what embedded means. That's to show evidence in a different level. If you want to embed, and when you're writing a statement or sentence, and you want to use quotes and embed them, it's just keywords or phrases. You don't use a whole paragraph. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
If you need to change the tense, use in your chosen quotations so that they make grammatical sense in your sentence, you can. Okay, to do this, use square brackets to show you have changed the endings of keywords. For example, yes, if the quote is telling you it growls and you want to change it into a tense that makes sense to your statement, then you use this. When Harry growled in David's ears, it was clear David felt threatened by him, as he was behaving like an aggressive animal. Now, the direct quote is growls, right?
Yes.
And you change the tense to growled. So you use the base form of the verb, the base form, and whatever tense you used, just put it in brackets.
Okay.
Okay. If you can use the original, you keep it, like here. You keep it. This is the original tense. But if you need to change the tense, then you do this.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm pretty sure you have seen this before. And sometimes wonder, why do they use brackets? Well, this is the reason why. Okay.
Okay.
Remember, don't forget to still use quotation marks around the words or phrases you have taken directly from the text to show that they are not your own words. Yes, it doesn't matter. You change the tense, they're still not your words. Okay, so be careful. You might get in trouble. Okay.
Okay.
Expanding and developing your point. Okay. So after you have used evidence to prove your point, move on and expand your idea further. This doesn't just involve explaining what the quotation means and how it has been used to imply the point you're making. It involves developing your first point further. Let's look at the description of the jungle in Lord of the Flies by William Golding, analyzing what is being implied about it. Okay, so when the boys' plane crash into the bath of heat, that is the jungle, it is instantly made to sound unpleasant and intolerable. This could be expanded on by explaining why the phrase bath of heat implies these ideas, identifying and explaining any language techniques that the writer may have used. For instance, this metaphor makes it sound unbearably hot with no let up, like you are surrounded by heat in the way you would normally be with water in a bath. Okay, so yes, you're using in this case a metaphor, a comparison. And when we exaggerate, do you know the term for exaggeration?
No.
Do you exaggerate sometimes in words when you speak to someone?
I exaggerate. What is it that?
For example, I'm so hungry, I could die of hunger.
Ah,
That's
okay, okay.
that's
You
an
are being
exaggeration. We call
uh,
that a hyperbole.
a little bit dramatic.
Not necessarily, but
Exagerado.
it's a hyperbole.
Ah, okay, okay.
Okay, and we need to be careful not to confuse a metaphor with a hyperbole. A hyperbole is an exaggeration. Okay,
Okay.
not necessarily dramatic, but you exaggerate. And here, when they used when the boy's plane crashes into the bath of heat, is not an exaggeration. You are using a metaphor. You are comparing the heat, the suffocating heat, the humidity, as if you were in a sauna, in un sauna.
Ah, okay.
You're making a comparison, not a hyperbole. Okay. If you say uh, into the heat of hell, that would be a hyperbole. It's not like you can see hell and see what it is like. We just use what people talk about in hell, right? But not necessarily we know that, right?
Okay.
Okay, so any questions about a metaphor and a hyperbole?
No, no question.
No questions? Okay, so let's see. Could you give me just a minute?
Sure, no problem.
Okay, give me just a minute. Okay, so let's continue.
Okay.
Okay, trying to expand your point, and this is probably the most difficult part. Here is a claim with supporting evidence about an old dog in the novella of Mice of Men by John Steinbeck. Candy's dog is clearly nearing the end of its life, and it is gray of muscle, implying it is old. Okay,
Okay.
so you're quoting evidence from the text, and for example, when you say gray of muscle, that's an expression that is probably from the culture, okay, from people saying. Remember, when a dog looks old, I don't know, you notice, they change a different color on their
Yes.
on their head, right?
Yes.
They get gray too. So it makes sense. Use this secondary evidence to expand on the above, developing the point about why we know the dog is probably not going to live for a very much longer. Okay, the dog struggled lamely to the side of the room and lay down, grunting softly to himself. Grunting is like,
Ah,
you know,
okay.
like they do that with their breath. My dog does that when he's hungry. And licking his grizzled, moth-eating coat. Okay, and this is something like a metaphor too. Moth-eating quote. For example, you heard about polilla, right?
Yes.
In clothes, you see how they eat your fibers, your materials, the clothes
I
when
never
you
see how they eat, but I know what polilla is in.
you never experience that. Okay, the thing is, in the cold weather, it's not likely to happen, but in the hot weather, they will make holes in your clothes.
Ah, okay.
Okay, so this is a metaphor, moth eaten quote, unquote, referring to the fur, el pelaje del perro,
Ah,
como
okay.
que si se lo hubiera comido la polilla. So they're making a comparison. It's a metaphor.
Okay.
Okay, so yes, expanding your points, secondary evidence to expand. And that's pretty much it from ideas from a text. Okay,
Okay.
share this information with you later.
Sure.
And
Thank you.
let me see. What is next? Oh, yes. Let me show you my screen. Now, transition words and phrases. Okay. To add
Okay.
ideas, contrast, concession, resolve, examples, clarification, sequence, etc. And remember, we have spoken about transition words, right? But we're going to discuss when does each one applies and what's the meaning. And perhaps I strongly suggest at some point, try to make a comparison as if what is the meaning for each one as if you were trying to use them in Spanish. Okay. It'll help you a lot, especially if you get to a point where you have to interpret. It'll be easier for you to use these words.
Okay.
So what this handout is about? In this crazy mixed up world of ours, transitions glue our ideas and our essays together. So this information will introduce you to some useful transitional explanations and help you employ them effectively. Okay. So pretty much what I have mentioned before. Now, transitional words and phrases. As part of a speech, transitional words are used to link words, phrases, and sentences. They help the reader to progress from one idea expressed by the other to the next idea. Thus, they help to build up coherent relationships within the text. So, English transitional words and phrases are essential since they not only connect ideas, but also can introduce a certain shift, contrast or opposition, emphasis or agreement, purpose or result or conclusion in the line of argument. Yes, transitional words and phrases below have been assigned only once to somewhat artificial categories, although some words belong to more than one category. So let's get into this. Okay, signs that you might need to work on your transitions. Okay, so how can you tell whether you need to work on your transitions? Here are some possible clues or pistas. Your instructor has written comments like choppy, jumpy, abrupt, flow, need signpost, or how is this related on your paper? Okay, so your readers, instructors, friends, classmates tell you that they had trouble following your organization or train of thought. You tend to write the way you think, and your brain often jumps from one idea to another pretty quickly. You wrote your paper in several discrete chunks and then pasted them together. You are working on a group paper. The draft you're working on was created by pasting pieces of several people's writing together. Okay. So these are just clues that you need to apply and use transition words
Okay.
so that it looks organized. Okay. And yes, when you are working in a draft, you're gonna have a lot of this information, choppy, jumpy, abrupt flow, just chunks, no flow, but it's a draft. From there, you just give it the final touches, okay?
Okay.
How transition works. Okay, now this is a big explanation. The organization of your written work includes two elements. The order in which you have chosen to present the different parts of your discussion or argument, and the relationships you construct between these parts. Transitions cannot substitute for good organization. Okay, so let's not confuse it. One when one topic is using transitions and the other part is how you organize your information. So you don't rely completely in transitions that your information is going to be good, but they can make your organization clearer, easier to follow. Take a look at the following examples. El País, a Latin American country, has a new democratic government after having been a dictatorship for many years. Assume that you want to argue that El País is not as democratic as the conventional view would have us believe. Now, paragraph 1 points that support the view that El País new government is very democratic. Despite the previous arguments, there are many reasons to think that El País new government is not as democratic as typically believed. Paragraph 2 points that contradict the view that El País new government is very democratic. So the opposite. In this case, the transition words, despite the previous arguments, suggest that the reader should not believe paragraph A and instead should consider the writer's reasons for viewing El País democracy as suspect. Okay,
Okay.
so as the example suggests, transitions can help reinforce the underlying logic of your paper's organization by providing the reader with essential information. Okay, so I think it's pretty clear, unless you have any questions in regards to this info.
No.
No? And for example, in this transition, despite the previous arguments, so this is a transition.
Despite?
Mhm.
Okay.
Despite. What is your understanding of despite?
Like a pesar?
Yes, that's what it is.
Okay. But in the sentence, they don't say despite in the main sentence.
Here on top. In this one. Yes, they didn't. But you are using that information to show the different views. Okay. Remember, in the topic as it is, they are discussing a new transition from dictatorship to democracy.
Okay.
And after so many years, people don't believe it's a democracy. And that's why you're using despite, is your information.
Okay.
So let's see. Agreement, addition, similarity. The transitional words like also, in addition, and likewise add information, reinforce ideas, and express agreement with preceding material. Okay, so all of this information in the first place, as a matter of fact, in addition, in the same fashion or way, in the light of, to say nothing of, equally, identically, moreover, together with, likewise, correspondingly, furthermore, not only, but also, in like manner, coupled with, first, second, third, like, for example, you say first, so, second, so, third. Equally important.
This is too important to use in the TOEFL, right? In the organization.
Yes, yes.
Transitional words.
Yes.
Okay.
When you are talking about agreeing, adding information, or talking about something similar.
Okay.
Okay. By the same token, uniquely, as well as, of course, comparatively, similarly, and additionally. Okay. Any questions about these transitions?
No.
Now, opposition, limitation, and contradiction. Transitional phrases
Uh,
like but and rather and or express there is evidence to the contrary. But it's not only that, or point out alternatives, and thus introduce a change in the line of reasoning, contrast. So we have many more. Although these may be true, different from, on the other hand, at the same time, even so though, then again, in reality, unlike, and yet, I'll belt, okay? No, I'll wait, sorry.
okay.
That word, to be honest, I never used it. That was
This.
actually, yes, I'll wait. It's like a
Um,
French word made into English.
okay.
I've seen it. I think I read that I used that word when I read uh, Macbeth, but that was a long time ago. That was the only time I saw that word in old Elizabethan English.
Okay.
Yes, as much as, although, whereas, conversely, nevertheless, regardless, however, in contrast, of course, but on the contrary, in spite of, be that as it may, above all, after all, and still, while, besides, even though, instead, despite, otherwise, nonetheless, notwithstanding, and rather. All of these transitions we use for opposition, limitation, and contradiction.
Okay.
Okay. Cause, condition, and purpose. Use transitional phrases uh, present specific conditions and intentions. Okay. So in the event that, as, so long as, for the purpose of, with this in mind, to the end that, in order to, in view of, unless, while, since, and notice that some of them they repeat. Yeah, they're very versatile, but you don't want to use those words always for everything, right?
Yes. These are not too common, right? This.
Oh, they are, but we don't use them. But we don't use them.
Okay.
Okay, provided that only, even if, so as to, in as much as, granted that, on the condition that, with the intention, in the hope that, in for fear that, seeing being that, if, then, whenever, because of, in case, given that, so that, owing to, due to, thanks to. Okay. So cause, condition, and purpose.
Okay.
Any questions?
No. No.
No questions?
Can you send me this document?
Yes, of course.
I want to ask you if we can finish the class like 5 or 7 minutes early.
You have to go.
Yes, I
We're
have to.
almost finished, okay?
Okay,
We're
perfect.
almost finished, okay?
Thanks.
And examples, support, and emphasis. Yes, these transitional devices, like especially, are used to introduce examples, support, to indicate importance, or as an illustration so that an idea is cued to the reader. Okay, so we have all of this. Can you help me read them?
Yes, in other words, for one thing, in this case, to put it another way, with attention to, important to realize, to put indifferently, as an illustration for this reason, that is to say, by all means, another key point. First thing to remember must be remembered to point out with this in mind, notably to be sure, chiefly, indeed, surely, such as explicitly, expressly, particularly, in general, in detail, for instance, to emphasize, to clarify, to enumerate. Most compelling evidence, point often overlooked, on the positive side, on the negative side, including, namely, truly, certainly, markedly, especially, specifically, surprisingly, in fact, in particular, for example, to demonstrate, to repeat, to explain is significant.
Are you familiar with any of these words?
Yes, for a lot of these words.
Okay, some of them are new. For example, you watch Western movies about
Mhm.
cowboys and guns and horses. You will hear words such as by all means,
Ah,
chiefly,
simply
indeed,
I didn't hear that word. No.
yes. Those are like Western words, and it seems like it depends on what century some of those words were popular.
Okay.
So let's see. Effect, consequence, and results. Some of these transition words, such as thus, then, accordingly, consequently, therefore, henceforth, are time words that are used to show that after a particular time, there was a consequence or an effect. Yes, and most of these words we use in a conclusion, okay?
Okay.
Or whenever we want to show uh, a summary, right? For example, as a result, in that case, because the consequently, thereupon, accordingly, in effect, under those circumstances, for this reason, hence, therefore, forthwith, henceforth, and thus.
Okay.
Not necessarily as a conclusion, but also if you want to show an effect or a result.
Okay.
Okay. But in my case, I use a lot of these words whenever I write a conclusion.
This okay. It's like this is for the last part of the right.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily.
For this
But
is
for example,
important.
in my case, uh, whenever I write about, example, an expository essay, and all of the evidence, remember the essay about hiccups
Yes. Yes.
and all of the outcomes of having an hiccups, and also what to do in order to stop the hiccups. You can say in the conclusion, as a result, the following activities can be applied in order to avoid or prevent hiccups. First, blah, blah, blah. Second, blah, blah. You know, so you can also use this information at the end, but not necessarily. If within a paragraph in your body, you have to show a false conclusion about a certain uh, evidence, you have to use it, but that's not your conclusion. That's just a small conclusion of that topic in specific.
Okay.
Now, this is the ones for actually for the last part. Okay, these are like some that you can use, but these ones, they are for conclusion, summary, and restatement. These transitional words and phrases conclude, summarize, and or restate ideas or indicate a final general statement. Also, some words like therefore and effect, consequence, category can be used to summarize. Okay, as can be seen in the final analysis, as shown above, given these points in a word, after all, in summary, in short, in essence, unbalanced overall. Usually, to sum up, in any event, all in all, ultimately, generally speaking, all things considered, in the long run, as has been noted, for the most part, in fact, in conclusion, in brief, to summarize, although ordinarily, by and large, on the whole, in either case, obviously and definitely. Are you familiar with any of these transitions?
Yes, I'm familiar.
But not all of them, right?
No, not that.
Which ones are new to you?
By and large, on the whole, on balance,
Okay.
as shown above in the final analysis. I know the meaning, but I never heard.
Okay. Yes. And for example, by and large, this is very, very British.
Okay.
Because some of them are also Latin transitions. Okay, they come from Romance languages, but not everything is Romance in English. It's also Germanic, Scandinavian, right? So that's why some of them are very familiar to us, but also many of them might be confusing, and such it is by and large.
Okay.
Time and chronology sequence. I'm always having problems with that one. So these transitional words, like finally, have a function of limiting, restricting, and defining time. They can be used either alone or as part of adverbial expressions. And okay, at the present time, sooner or later, up to the present time, in due time, as long as, in a moment, in the first place, at this instant, formerly, eventually, prior to. Yes, time, chronological order, and sequence. Many transitional words in the time category, for example, consequently, first, second, third, further, hence, henceforth, since then, when, and whenever, have other uses as well. And we talked about that in the past. Except for the numbers first, second, and third, and further, they add a meaning of time. And that's why a lot of readers, they prefer to use that order, because it gives you a sequence and the reader can see it right away. Okay. The numbers are also used to add information, a list of examples. All right. And well, that's pretty much it. Just we're doing a conclusion, how we use the coordinating conjunctions and subordinating conjunctions. And that's pretty much it. Okay. I know you have to go. And I will share this information to you so you can have it available.
Okay, thank you.
And before you go, can you help me with the daily survey?
Yes, sure. Okay, thank you and see you tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Lucy. Bye-bye. Have a good day.
Bye. Bye.